I could hardly breathe as I stood in front of the mirror. What I saw sent chills down my back. My hair, once a deep brown, was blonde and I had pigtails sticking out each side, a red ribbon tied to each one for accent. On my feet I wore white ankle socks and red shoes, but the dress, well, it was short and lacy with short sleeves, a skirt that stood almost straight out and a bodice that formed over my very small breasts, merely bumps that hinted at the possible future. On my face I wore makeup with a pale blusher, eyeliner, and red lipstick. As I stood there staring in shock, Mom handed me a small toy doll to carry, then she took me by the hand and led me to the family room. As I stepped into the room, everyone went silent. Mom let go of my hand and stood to one side. I saw everyone staring at me as I waited for her to tell me what to do. Angry yet afraid, I did as she told me. Grabbing the hem of my skirt in each hand, I curtsied to them, then stood there red-faced in shame. My name is Carol, a Slavic spelling of a very common name there. Mom had changed it to Carol, of course, the minute she found out what I had done. Then, 2 days later, she had forced me into the outfit I stood there wearing. My crime? I had borrowed some clothes from our neighbor's clothesline, then wore them. Of course, the dress was weighted big, and I had to wear my own shoes, but I thought it would be the perfect disguise when I borrowed a car down the street. All I wanted to do was ride around a little. I would have brought it back, but I had extremely bad luck when my dad spotted me just 3 blocks from home. He ran me to the curb, then had me drive the car back. After that I was confined to my bedroom, grounded. Time crawled by as I wondered what they would do, and when I found out I wished I had never taken the dress or the car, because there I stood, all dressed up, 15 going on 10, not as a boy, but a little girl. "Do you have a name, dear?" It was Mrs. Benton. She owned the dress. "Carol," I told her. "Is this display only for today?" That was Mrs. Presentman. She owned the car. "No," Dad said, "Carol has to learn a harsh lesson, so we have decided that she will be with us for 2 weeks, and not only that, she will be available to help you with your household chores anytime you ask." "Not dressed like that, I hope." Mrs. Benton sounded firm. "Of course not," Mom told her. "I have some very nice little dresses she can wear, but we insist that she wear the corselet and makeup, and always have her hair done. Otherwise she won't learn anything." "Yes, of course," Mrs. Presentman said, "and I have some things left over from earlier that she might like as well. Perhaps you would like to stop by later today and we can see if any of them fit her?" "I'm sure that Carol would enjoy that," Mom said. "Maybe we can stop by in an hour?" "I'll look forward to it," Mrs. Presentman said with a grin. As soon as they left I stood with my parents there in front of me, Dad glaring, Mom disgusted. "I promise you," Mom said, "that after 2 whole weeks of this, you will either hate it or you'll want to become a girl, because from this moment on I intend to make you as pretty as I can, dress you in the frilliest dresses I can find, and take you everywhere I go, every day, for the next 2 weeks. That means no slacks of any kind, for any reason, and you'll always wear the proper lingerie and makeup, including lipstick and gloss." I started to say something, but Mom raised her hand. "I know that you have a meeting on Friday night, but since you cannot wear slacks, I have picked up a very nice skirt for you to wear." I sputtered, but Mom went on. "There is no reason to worry, Carol. The skirt is the exact color of your slacks and should look just fine with the rest of your uniform. The only other change we might have to make is to find the right blouse for you. Mrs. Presentman is waiting for you too, isn't she?" Dad didn't sound eager for me to leave the house that way, but... "Of course," Mom said, taking my hand. "Let's go, Carol." The very idea that my parents would make me attend a meeting dressed as a girl shocked me so much that I was speechless. I felt the tears coming to my eyes and my lip quivering, but Mom, paying no attention to me, simply opened the door and dragged me outside. Standing there in broad daylight dressed that way sent my fear level into high gear, since some of my buddies lived close by. If they saw me this way... "Come on, Carol," Mom said, "it's only a few houses down, and won't take long at all, and you might as well get used to being seen by all of your friends, because I intend to see to it that you are. Maybe next time you'll think twice before you steal a car." We walked down the street, drawing stares from our other neighbors, including my best buddy Paul. He almost asked me what was going on, but a nasty look from Mom sent him scurrying back inside his house. At that moment my life went right straight into the toilet. I could see it on Paul's face. We stood on the porch waiting, then the door opened and were ushered inside. As much as I didn't want to be there, it was a lot better than being outside, so I stood there next to Mom, silent as she and Mrs. Presentman chatted. Looking over her shoulder I saw a pile of clothes on the couch, and just knew that they were for me, if they fit that is. Mom and Mrs. P walked to the couch, and with a glare from Mom, I joined them. The first thing I saw was a tan and white pleated skirt, and it looked awfully short to me. These clothes belonged to my niece Janet. They're all from the 60s, maybe the 70s. I don't have any idea what's in style for young girls right now, but if they fit, I'm sure, Mom said, that Carol will look lovely in them. Shall we begin? Moving behind me, just let me unbutton this dress so we can get it off. After Mom removed the dress I was left standing there in panties and a very tight panty girdle that hid my manhood, and a bra stuffed with socks. Mrs. P caught a glimpse of one sock, and began to dig around in a small box, smiling as she held out a pair of what looked like breasts. My niece used these when she was about your age. She didn't blossom as fast as some of the other girls, I guess. They'll be perfect for you. Mom quickly took them, then stuffed one in each bra cup, tossing aside the socks that I had been using. The tan and white skirt fit, but like I thought, it was short. Real short. It came to mid-thigh on me. One after another, I tried on skirts and dresses, shorts and tops, blouses and shoes until the pile of stuff that fit had grown quite large. I was told to put the tan and white skirt on, then I was handed a white pullover top that had a crew neck and short sleeves. Mrs. P handed me a pair of white flats which I put on, then they both stood staring at me. This will save us a lot of money, Marion, Mom said, and I know that Carol will make good use of them. Mom showed me how to fold everything, then she and Mrs. P left me alone to do just that. All of the skirts were short, like the one I had on, and the dresses, also short, were tight enough on me to reveal the fact that I had at least something like a girl's figure. I wanted to run away, but where to? I saw the way Paul looked at me, and knew that I had lost a friend, if not because I was dressed as a girl, but because I had swiped a car. His dad was a cop, and would make sure that Paul stayed away from me, so he wouldn't be contaminated by a criminal, me. Then of course there were the twins, Nancy and Cheryl. They lived 3 houses down, and had never once been the least bit kind to me. I could hardly wait until they saw me, knowing that whatever they did, it would be memorable. As I piled the clothes into the boxes my heart sank and I wanted to cry. One mistake, just one, and here I was. Of course, if I hadn't worn that dress as a sort of disguise, maybe my parents wouldn't have done this to me. I had no idea what had possessed me to do that, and really wished I hadn't. A short time later Mom reappeared with Mrs. Presentman, pulling a small wagon behind her. After she put it on the sidewalk out front, I piled the boxes on it, then Mom gave me the handle. To say that I was aware of just how much that outfit I had on made me look like a girl would be impossible. I felt the wind on my bare legs, the tension of the bra, and tasted the lipstick I wore, and as I trudged home, I saw the twins coming at us, both smiling. When they stood in front of me I saw Nancy smile as she looked me over from head to toe. Cheryl spoke up. Paul called and told us that you were. Carol, Mom said, is experiencing a little punishment. She'll be around for at least the next 2 weeks, maybe more if we think she needs it, so I expect you girls to treat her just like you would any of your other friends. I won't tolerate anyone teasing her about her punishment. Am I making myself clear? Yes, ma'am, they said in unison. We just thought, Cheryl then said, that Carol might want to hang around with us a little. We can show her some makeup and hair tips. Things like that. That's very nice of you, Mom answered. Maybe after we put away these clothes and have some lunch, Carol can walk down and see you? That's great, Nancy said. We'll be home, just ring the bell. They left, walking around us, then Mom and I started home. I was despondent that Mom had so eagerly told the twins that I would visit them, then made it sound as if she wanted them to help make me act like a girl. By the time we were in the house, with the boxes piled in the kitchen, I couldn't hold it in anymore, and exploded. I am not, I said angrily, going to go outside like this, and I am not going to visit Nancy and Cheryl. They'll make my life miserable, and you know it. Paul probably won't ever talk to me again. I'm not going to do it. No way. Not ever. With that I yanked the skirt down and stepped out of it, then ripped the top off and threw it at my mother before I ran to my room and slammed the door shut. I fell on the bed sobbing, unable to stop the shaking that overcame me. I didn't hear the door open, so when I felt a hand on my shoulder I was startled and flipped over to see who it was. My mother stood there, grim-faced yet somehow didn't look angry. I understand how you feel, she said, but you were wearing a dress when your father caught you. So what were we to think? And you heard me tell Nancy and Cheryl that I wouldn't tolerate anyone teasing you. Yeah, right, I said sarcastically, like they're afraid of you. They'll make sure that everyone they know finds out. If they haven't done that already, then make sure they all see me. They'll invite them over while I'm there, all innocently of course, but the results will be the same, and you can't threaten all of them. I'll be the butt of every joke from now until I graduate. My tears started again, and as I sobbed, my mother sat on the bed next to me and put her arm around my shoulder. Then maybe we had better find a place that you can be a girl and nobody will bother you. My voice crackling in sobs, it won't matter now, will it? Not after this morning. We never thought that. Mom paused, then, I'll think of something, but for now, as long as you're inside, I want you to put these clothes back on. Mom put the skirt and top on the bed then left, shutting the door slowly, leaving me to stare at, and wonder if I should do what she told me before finally bowing to her authority. As I pulled the top over my head I told myself that the only way I was going to leave the house dressed as a girl, ever again, was if I were dead. I stayed in my room until my dad opened the door and walked in. He wasn't smiling. Your mother told me what happened today, and I have to tell you that we never figured that the other kids would be as cruel to you as they have been, and for that I apologize. However, you will, and I stress will, do as we tell you, and wear what we tell you when we tell you. On that you have no choice. If I have to, I will dress you myself, tie you to a chair, and set you on the front porch. I will not have you yelling at your mother, nor will I let you dictate what you will and will not do. We set the rules, and you'll follow them. Is that clear? I stood up, angrier than I ever had been, and stood just inches away from my dad. I'm 15 now. I'm not some little kid that you can spank. I can't do this. Already Nancy and Cheryl are plotting ways to embarrass me, and Paul probably won't talk to me ever again. I'll wear the clothes in the house, but I'm not going outside like this, not now, not ever. Dad's face grew red, bright red, and I saw his fist clench. If you hit me with your fist, I told him, I'll call somebody, and your ass will be in very hot water, and I'll fight back. I might lose, but you'll know exactly how it feels to hurt. I stood back a little, watching him like a hawk. Dad is only a few inches taller than me, and I knew that if he started in on me I would, and probably could, smack him enough times to drive home my point, before he beat me to a pulp. No matter what happened, I wasn't going out as a girl ever again, not in that neighborhood I wasn't. We were at a standoff. He wasn't about to touch me, and I wasn't going to go outside. He and I both knew, because Mom had seen it with her own 2 eyes, and heard my words, that my tenure at the school I had attended would be forever intolerable. He grimaced, then spun around and left my room, slamming the door as he left. I flopped on the bed, my whole body shaking from the adrenaline overload I was suffering under. I sat there, knowing that I had stepped over the line with my dad, and could only wonder what he would do next. If I could, I would have locked my bedroom door. It was almost 2 hours before my mother returned, a tray in her hands. Your father is very angry, Carol. What's your version of happened up here? I told her, almost word for word, since they were seared into my memory, and as she listened she began to shake. Maybe, instead, she said quickly, you would rather spend some time in jail? After what you did to me this morning, maybe. I might gain a little respect and not have to be the fool when I have to go back to school. Okay then, Mom told me, I'll see what I can do. I took off the clothes, let out the pigtails and washed off the makeup before I went to bed, but sleep was hard as I pondered what was going to happen next. Whatever it was, it just had to be better than what I had gone through that day. When I got up the next day, I slipped on jeans and a sweatshirt, my loafers, and went to the kitchen. My parents were both there, but neither of them commented on how I was dressed. Just as I finished eating, there was a knock on the door, and when Mom opened it, I saw 2 cops standing there. They asked me my name, then arrested me, put me in handcuffs, then read me my rights. They dragged me outside and into the police car, all without another word. I was taken to the juvenile center, processed in, then taken to a dormitory-like building. As the guard showed me where to bunk, "This is the felony building, kid. That means you're in here with the very worst. I hope you know how to handle yourself, it can get rough in here. And by the way, watch out for Tiny." With that, he walked out, locking the door behind him as he left. Looking around, I saw neatly made beds, each with a footlocker at the end of the bed, just like I had seen in military movies. I was alone, so I sat on the bed, just waiting. With nothing to do, I quickly got bored and fell asleep on the bed. The next thing I knew, someone shook me awake. Looking up, I was surrounded by some very nasty-looking guys. Well, one of them said, "Looky here. We got us a new bitch." "Yeah," another said, "and I'll bet she's tight." All at once the guys parted, and I was looking up at a giant. "Split," was all he said, and everyone moved away, just about as far as they could get. "I'm Tiny. I run this here place. Get up." Not moving as fast as he wanted, he quickly yanked me to my feet. He truly was a giant. The top of my head barely made it to the middle of his chest. "Wada ya in for, kid?" His voice sounded squeaky to me. "Car theft," I said nervously, "just joyriding." "Wearing a dress, I hear," Tiny said with a laugh. "Me, I'm in for a triple murder. They dissed me bad. I had to do something or lose face, and I don't like losing face, get it?" I nodded my head yes. "Then, you be my new bitch, get it? Whatever I want, you do. Like make my bed," he said with a gleam in his eye. "How old are you?" 15, I managed to squeak out. "Me, I'm 13, so all I'll do is 8 years. They have to let me go when I'm 21. He stood there just about as imposing as anyone I had ever seen, and he was only 13. At least 6 feet 2 inches and 275 pounds, he was the biggest 13-year-old I had ever seen. "What's your name, bitch?" "Carol," I said, knowing that there was no difference between pronunciations. Carol and Carol sound exactly the same. "Carol," he said. "You even got a bitch's name." Taking my arm in a tight grip, he added, "Stay with me. I'll show you around, but you'll be nice to me, real nice, later, after lights out, here?" We went to dinner where I was surrounded by Tiny's buddies, all grinning at me as I tried to eat the greasy slop they served. Then we went back to our dorm and were locked in. About an hour later, the lights went out, I crawled into bed. Time went by slowly, but I finally fell asleep. Then deep into the night, I felt a hand on my head, gripping my hair tightly. My eyes popped open and right in front of my face, just inches away, was a very hard, fully erect bit of manhood. It was attached to a grinning Tiny. "Take it, bitch! With a name like Carol, you should be good at this." I saw the shadows of his pals crowding around to watch him deflower me, titters and soft laughing filling the night, but not drowning out the sound of my heart beating hard. "Take it!" Tiny demanded, pulling my head closer. Gripped with fear, I didn't move a muscle as I hoped a guard would show up and put a stop to what was happening. "Ain't nobody," a voice said, "coming tonight, bitch, so you best be doing Tiny and get it over with." I wet my pants in fear, my head pulling back against his immense strength, unwilling to do what he wanted. Then the lights flicked on. Tiny instantly let go of me, grinning as he sauntered back to his own bunk, still naked from the waist down, a grin on his face. I lay there panting hard, the stench of my wetting the bed floating up and around me. I was afraid to say anything or even move, but my brain was telling me something else altogether. It was telling me what a fool I had been to not simply take my lumps and wear the damned dress. The guard walked up to me, his face hard, a stick tapping slowing in the palm of his hand. "You! Get your sorry ass out of there. Take a shower and put some clean clothes on. I want you in my office in 20 minutes. I popped out of that bed like I had been poked with a sharp stick and literally ran to the showers, taking a clean jumpsuit with me as I ran down the long corridor. 20 minutes later I stood in front of the guard at full attention while he gave me the once-over. "I warned you, didn't I? I don't like whores in my jail, boy, so I have two choices. Let you go back in there and let Tiny take you, or send you home to Mama, under house arrest of course. I'm inclined to send you back to Tiny, since he manages to keep things quiet in there." He sat at his desk looking up at me. My knees were shaking in fear, and he was right. I was ready to run right back to my mama. Stealing a car, huh? And wearing a dress too? Why, I'll bet you look just cute as hell in that old lady's dress. He started laughing, a hoarse crackle that sounded like pure meanness. "You stay in here tonight, kid. I'll decide what to do about you in the morning." Then he left, locking me inside the room. I looked around the sparsely furnished room, one ugly painting, one scarred desk and a beat-up chair, but there on the desk sat a phone. I had to get out of there, one more night with Tiny, and I knew that I would truly be his bitch, whether I wanted to be or not. I picked up the phone, heard a dial tone, and called home. Mom answered. I begged her, pleaded with her to let me come home. I even told her that I would wear anything she wanted me to, only I had to get out of that hellhole, and I had to leave soon, or I would not be the same person that left her kitchen in handcuffs. Mom listened without a word until I was done, then, "I'll think about it, but don't count on it." Then she hung up. What I didn't hear. Did he go for it? He said that he would wear anything we told him to, but he had to leave or he'd be a different person when he got out. He sounded very scared, honey. Jack told me that this kid called Tiny was ready to do almost anything he asked because he needs a good report or the courts can order him held for life. Seems this kid Tiny did a triple murder, and the kid is only 13, and he is bigger than most grown men. He told me that Tiny was ordered to scare Carol without hurting him, and that nobody else could know. It sounds as if he managed to pull it off. But Carol had a very valid point, honey. We cannot subject him to his friends like that, or we might as well leave him in jail. I talked to Mary, and she has agreed to let him live with her while he's being punished. So, when do we pick him up? Let me do it. I'll take all of his clothes with me, then take him to Mary's house. I'll let you know how it went. Of course I had no idea that I had been set up. I only knew that if I didn't leave, I would become less than a woman after Tiny forced me to do what he wanted. I didn't think I could live with myself if I had done it, so I was ready to do whatever my parents wanted, as long as they took me out of there. I dozed lightly in that chair, awakening only when the guard came to get me. At breakfast, which was almost inedible eggs and bacon that was hard like jerky, with black coffee so thick you might have been able to use it in your car. I was set to work raking the yard, picking up stones and so on, which lasted about 3 hours. When the guard came to get me, I was relieved to simply get a drink of water. He took me to his office where I saw Mom waiting. "So," she said, "you're ready to wear dresses again? What's the matter? Not quite as tough as you thought you were?" I started crying, unable to control myself. "Well, let's get you out of here then." Mom took me by the arm and led me right past the guard and out to the car. Then, as we drove away from that awful place, "I am going to tell you this much," Mom said softly, "you will be wearing dresses for a lot longer than 2 weeks, especially after the way you acted around your father and I. However, you did make a valid point. So, for your own protection, we will not demand that you be dressed as a girl around your friends. You will be staying with your Aunt Mary, but make no mistake about it, you'll wear those clothes, or you'll be back in there faster than you can blink." Pausing, she grinned at me. "Doing it this way, all of your friends will think you're still in jail, so we all get what we want." True to her word, she took me to Aunt Mary's, then made sure I was fully dressed as a girl before she left for home, leaving me to stay with Aunt Mary. My aunt was younger than my mother, real pretty, and had a knockout figure. She and I sat at the kitchen table as she explained the rules to me, rules that she said I didn't want to intentionally break. You'll have to keep your skin free of hair. Girls don't have hair in places boys normally do. You have to wear panties and a bra at all times except when you're sleeping or washing up, and while I may let you wear shorts, there will be no slacks unless the weather gets very cold. I'll expect you to wear makeup at all times, and have your hair presentable. I'm sure that after a few days you'll get the hang of things and it will become easier. Since your hair needs to be styled, we will do that tomorrow, but just to fair, I'll let you have some say. I have these books for you to look at. Pick a hairstyle that you like and I'll have the stylist create it for you. I'll be on the porch while you look them over and decide. Sullen and still angry at myself, I opened the first book. It was nothing but girls' hairstyles, and none of them were the least bit like a guy's haircut, not even the short ones. Besides, I was told that I couldn't get anything that was above my ears. I had narrowed it down to about 10 when Aunt Mary came in and looked at what I had selected, then told me to follow her. Sitting in a straight-back chair, she took my picture, then started her computer, and within minutes she had my face on the screen. Using one of those programs that show you what you'll look like with different hair, she and I watched as my looks changed from childish to plain ugly to just right, but it wasn't the style that I had in mind. Using the color palette, she added some color to my face, and all at once I no longer looked like a boy in a dress but a teenage girl. If you quit fighting it, I'll bet that you'll be just fine, and I'm sure that your parents might reconsider your punishment. Let's try that. Let's get you all dolled up and dressed properly, then let's talk about why you did what you did. Okay? I feel dorky wearing a dress. Let me put it this way then. Since you are not going to be allowed to stay inside all of the time, and you'll certainly be with me when I do my errands, would you rather feel dorky and look the way you do now? Or would you rather feel dorky and look like the girl on the screen? That wasn't really a question, it was a threat posing as a question, but she did have a point, and as much as I hated the idea of it, I gave in and agreed with her, which made her smile. Then, since you have elected to look like a girl your own age, I have permission from your mother to let you dress as a girl your age would, so right after we leave the salon tomorrow we'll go shopping and get you clothes that are less childish. Now, go outside and play while I start dinner. I went outside but stayed in the backyard, just hanging out until it was dinner time. I sat by the tree and stared at the sky while I tried to figure out why I did something so stupid that I would end up in dresses. I had no answer, but one thing was very clear. If I went along with the program and did my best to act like a girl, then my time in dresses would be more pleasant and my freedoms wouldn't be so restricted. As much as I hated to admit it, if I had to dress as a girl, I would rather dress my own age rather than some little girl, so I resigned myself to doing exactly what Aunt Mary wanted me to do. We had dinner a short time later, then she and I went to my room where she took all sorts of measurements, writing them on a pad. She told me that she would use the catalogs to find my correct size. She went on to tell me what she thought I would need just to start with. Since we already know what your bra size should be, all we have to do is get you some better bras, and a larger cup size of course, and we'll change those baby panties for some that are better suited for a girl your age. We'll also stop at a shop I know of. They'll see to it that you have the right shape for a girl your age and size. Now, go wash up and go to bed. Surprising me, Aunt Mary brought in a skirt and blouse of her own for me to wear. According to her, if I was about to start behaving and be allowed dressed like a girl my age, then there was no reason for me to appear in public dressed like a 10-year-old. I got dressed, she did a bit of makeup and fixed my hair, then we had breakfast. You're what? 5 feet 8 inches, yeah, maybe a bit less. And about 130 pounds? More or less. We'll see what the fitter says, but I think that you'll have to lose a few pounds. Not much. Just a few. Maybe some of that fat around your waist so your clothes fit better. I had no idea what she meant other than I needed to diet and let it drop. She and I drove to a small shop where we went in, only to be met by a guy. He was a guy, that was for sure, but he had breasts, wore lipstick, and had 2 small bows pinned in his hair on the sides since he was bald on top. "Good morning. You are. I'm Mary. I called yesterday. This is Carol, the girl I told you about." "Of course," he said rather gleefully. "Come with me then." The guy was certainly an odd duck, and creepy in a way, but once we went in the back, he was all business. Mary gave him a slip of paper with my measurements on it, then he told me to undress, as in naked. Looking at Mary, she only shrugged her shoulders, so I began by taking my blouse and bra off, sitting the small breast forms on the floor. When I was down to the panties, he motioned that it was enough, and started taking skin color samples. When he seemed satisfied, he pulled out 2 new breast forms, then using some kind of glue, attached them to my chest. Using his finger, the seams disappeared, and all at once it looked like I had grown boobs. Looking in the mirror, I could see them, and even though I had seen him attach them, they looked very real to me. Those are the very best on the market, Carol. After you wear them for an hour or so, the built-in sensors will start to react to the adhesive and allow you to sense when someone touches them hard enough. You won't feel pain, of course, but touching them will cause the sensors to make your chest tingle. Now then, shall we get on with fitting the rest? The rest? I asked quietly. Take your panties off, please, and spread your legs. By the time he was done, I was speechless, yet in a way, very glad that he had done it. He had helped me get some sort of panty on that gave me every semblance of a female, matched my skin tone perfectly, and fit like a very tight glove. Again, there wasn't any seam I could see, only the thin slit where Mr. Happy once resided. My hips were wider, and my ass stuck out a bit more, rounded and firm, like my boobs. You may get dressed now, my dear. Just come back in 6 months so I can remove the items, clean your skin and reattach them. I'll go make out the bill. 6 months? I said to Mary. 6 months? I have to start school in the fall. I can't go like this. Of course not. You'll have to have some better clothes to start with. 6 months? Mom said 2 weeks. Wasn't that was before you had that little tirade? And didn't your mother tell you that you would be wearing dresses for a lot longer than 2 weeks? Yeah, but I thought. And isn't the term for stealing a car 3 to 5 years? Yeah, but. And weren't you wearing a dress when you were caught? I said nothing as Mary went on. For your information, Miss Smarty Pants, you have already been enrolled in a school. Myself, I think you'll enjoy it. Where? I asked dejectedly. I'll take you there tomorrow. Today is the day we turn you into a beautiful young lady. Mary sounded way too eager to suit me, but there wasn't anything I could do about it, and given the way I looked, I shut my big mouth before she thought of something else. I got dressed, and followed her out to the car. Mary led me through the mall, first taking me to a bra fitter. That was scary, but the lady didn't seem to get it, and I left wearing a new bra, size 36B, low cut with padding for uplift and a front fastener. I had cleavage. From there we picked up some shoes, had my ears pierced, bought a few skirts, shorts and tops, then panties, all high cut, all thin, lacy nylon. From there we went to her salon where they cut and styled my hair, dyeing it a soft blonde along the way. They did my nails, making them longer, painting them some sort of brownish purple. By the time they were done, I did not recognize myself, and I also knew that any thoughts I had of being able to be myself in a few weeks was gone, dust in the wind. While we were out, your mother dropped off those clothes, so I want you to sort through them and put them in your closet. Wear one of the skirts so I can see how they fit. Okay? Whatever. Don't smart-mouth me, Carol, or I'll make your stay here very unpleasant. I can have you back in those baby dresses in a hot minute, so remember that. Now do what I told you. As before, every one of the skirts and dresses Mom sent over were short, only they fit better now that I had the right shape. I wore the multicolored sleeveless sheath dress and the white flats when I appeared in front of Mary, the hem of the dress almost halfway up my thigh. Seeing her smile, I knew that she approved. A lot of things happened that day, like the time I had to use the bath, and found out that sitting was the only option, just like a girl, but later that day I found out just how far Mary was willing to go to make me understand that for a long time into the future, I was not only going to look like a girl, I would act like one, as well suffer the same dilemmas they did. It started that night after dinner, when Mary came into my room. As you know, she said softly, girls suffer their periods once a month, and have to learn how to take care of that so they don't soil their clothes. As a girl, you'll also have to know these things, so take the dress off and remove your panties. I'll show you what to do. But, I know girls have the monthlies, Mary, but I can't. Why do I? Take your dress off, please, and don't talk back to me again. When I was naked, Mary took out a tampon and began to explain it, how it worked and all that, then handed it to me. Go ahead, just like I told you. Squat a little, that's right, now push it in and remove the tube. That's right. Now, see that little string? That's how you remove it, but leave that one in for now. You can change it in the morning. Strangely, I could feel the tampon inside of the panty. I didn't even know that anything could be inserted, but once I knew that, I also knew that I could, but that was way out there. I wouldn't do that. Not me. No way. I was a guy. In the morning, wearing a green and white plaid skirt with a white top and my black flats, Mary took me to the family room. We have one more thing to do, to make you as much like a girl as possible, but before we do that I want you to know what your situation is, exactly. You are now, in virtually every way, a girl. You have breasts and a working twatsie, smooth skin and a wonderful haircut. You wear pierced earrings, you have longer nails, and you even use tampons. After today, you'll also have a higher-pitched voice. But, just so you understand all this, my instructions were to see to it that you dress like a girl at all times. In order to make it impossible for you to even think about trying to dress as a boy, and also keep you safe at the same time, I have decided to completely change everything about you. When we're done, there will be no way for anyone to think of you as anything but a girl, especially after today. Looking the way you do now, you have to agree that having a boy's voice just isn't going to do. I'm thinking a soft contralto instead of soprano, but if you resist, I can also see to it that you could have one of those high squeaky voices some girls have. Mary paused and let what she said sink in. Then, I have to go back to work, so I have enrolled you in a school that will teach you how to be a beautiful, well-mannered young lady. We'll go there right after we make our one stop to adjust your voice. Now, shall we go? The minute I had to push that thing into myself, I knew it was over. Using a tampon seemed ridiculous to me, but Mary had made it virtually impossible for me to do anything but what she wanted. That's why I didn't say a word when she told me my voice was about to change. If I did resist, I had no doubt that she would parade me around in those baby dresses and not even think about it as she had my voice raised to a squeaky pitch, so I grabbed my purse and followed her out to the car like a good little girl. I knew how I looked, and sadly, she was right. I looked just like a girl, even naked, and knew that having a higher voice would actually relieve some of my concerns. Only, I wondered if my normal voice would ever return. She did suggest, however fleeting, that the sentence for car theft was 3 to 5 years, and based on what she had done to me, and while she didn't say it, I had that sinking feeling that I was going to spend the same amount of time as a girl. I sat in the chair waiting, then the small Oriental guy shoved a long needle into my left shoulder. He had me start counting, then he moved the needle a bit and my voice instantly changed pitch. He did it again, stopping only when he was satisfied. With every word, I sounded like a girl. Mary paid him, and we left for the school she had mentioned. I didn't want to be a girl, but until my voice changed I always felt as if I could go back to being a boy, just like I planned. Mary didn't say anything while she drove, leaving me to think about what had become of me. If everyone thought I was a girl, and I sounded like a girl, and acted like a girl, and had the same biological issues girls have, then the logical conclusion was that I had become a girl. And girls do things for boys, things like what Tiny had wanted me to do. Mary had never suggested that boys might be a part of my future, but knowing how I looked, it was almost a sure bet that it might be a possibility, one that I didn't want to think of. I dearly wish that I had not stolen the car, but especially, I wish I had not worn the dress. That was just plain stupid on my part. The school turned out to be a beauty school. The lady that ran the place wore enough makeup for any 3 drag queens you could name, had her hair pulled up and back, held in place with a bright red ribbon, which clashed with her lime green blouse and blue pants. I glanced at Mary, sure that she had made a serious mistake. If the lady I was looking at ran the school, I could only wonder how good it was. As bad as I thought I was, she made me look like a beauty queen. Okay, Carol, we're all set here. Let me introduce you to your personal instructor. The woman even sounded bad, what with that raspy voice of hers. Mary left, telling me she would be back at 4, then I followed the lady through a doorway and into a small office. Carol, this is Jennifer, your new instructor. I'll let you two get acquainted. While the old lady looked like a clown, Jennifer was a real knockout. Hello, Carol, please, sit down. When I did, she opened a small folder, scanned it a bit, then, I see here that you stole a car? Wearing a dress when you got caught. I said nothing because she raised a finger to stop me. You've also been to see Marion, it says here. Am I correct in assuming that Marion gave you the works? Marion? The guy that fitted you for the breast forms and the panty. Yeah, I met him. By the sound of your voice, that was changed as well? This morning. Excellent. Now all we have to do is teach you how to do things like walk, use the right mannerisms, and of course, how to use the right inflections when you talk. By the time we're done, I promise you that you'll be so much like a girl that you'll wonder if you were ever a boy. But, I know, you don't want to be a girl, right? Right. My parents said. What they said was that they were going to make sure that you learned a lesson, and by wearing that dress when you took the car, what were they supposed to think? I have the judge's report here, plus the one from the guard at the detention facility. It says here the judge sentenced you to detention for 3 to 5 years, but let you stay with your parents pending approval of their punishment, which you decided wasn't for you. How am I doing so far? I said nothing, since it was all true. The guard writes here that you had attempted to have sex with a minor child known as Tiny, which is why you were released. They did not want to have any of those kinds of activities disrupting the other boys they had in detention. What was everyone to think? First you wore a dress when you stole that car, then you tried to induce a minor into sex? It was clearly obvious that you wanted to be a girl, so it was decided that you should get all the help you needed to be the girl you seem to want to be. But that's not what happened. Tiny tried to make me do it to him. It wasn't me, he. That's not what the report says, Carol, and who am I to believe? You? A car thief? Or a well-respected security guard with 26 years on the job? She stopped and looked at me for a moment, then, being a girl isn't the worst thing that will ever happen to you, Carol, but I know that's hard for you to see right now. Look at me, please. When I looked up, I was just like you once. I was playing around in my sister's clothes, then found my dad's gun. I was screwing around with it and it went off, hitting my sister in the leg. I was convicted, just like you, sent to detention, just like you, then I was sent here. Look at me now. I'm a woman now, I have a good job, a husband and plenty of friends. It's not nearly as bad as you might think, but I'm sure that you'll come to that conclusion on your own. Tell me, how long did Marion say it was before he needed to see you again? 6 months. He said he had to clean my skin or something. Did he mention anything about sensors? Yeah. He said that I would be able to tell if someone touched them. Why? That 6-month checkup is only so he can make sure the adhesive is still working. Marion has been working on a series of items that can be worn for years without removal. Just a few months ago he was close to perfecting both the materials and the sensors. If he has, and your breasts are made from them, what about the panty? Tell me about that. I told her what I knew, then how Mary made me use a tampon, and the fact that I could feel it when it went in. Jennifer smiled, and told me that I was as close to being a girl as a male could get without actually being in a program, then said that maybe I was better off with what I had. The fact that she had started out like me shocked me, because she was gorgeous in every way. But when she said that I was as close to being a girl as it was possible for me to get without surgery, I almost fainted. Carol! Carol! Huh, what? This is an indelicate question, but have you changed your tampon yet? No. I don't even need one. Why change it? But you do have new ones in your purse? Yeah, Mary said I should always have one or two with me. Why? Why don't you go check? I'll be waiting for you. But Go ahead, honey. I think maybe it's time that you got used to checking now and then. It's something we all do, so you'll have to get used to it as well. I went in the bath, then a stall, and took out a new one. When I took my panties off, I was scared when I pulled on the string and saw it coming out red and wet. I flushed it, then put a new one in, wondering how in the hell a tampon got bloody, especially when all I had on was some latex and silicone. When I washed up, I went back in Jennifer's office. She had that grin on her face. One that I would come to recognize later on. That's when she explained that the panty I had on used a special blend of that stuff Marion had concocted, and was built into the panty. It worked on a heat release basis, she told me. Just enough would flow out to ensure that I had to change it or risk soiling my panties. But, if I paid attention, I wouldn't ruin my clothes. She told me that the panty absorbed the moisture from my skin, which made the stuff liquid, which meant, according to her, that I had at least a 3-year supply built right into the panty. It's a lot better than the old packets we had to use. You're very lucky, Carol. Yeah, lucky. Now I have the monthlies. Just like all of the other girls. Jennifer started me out by taking a lot of pictures, then she had me do a bunch of exercises designed to make my walk more feminine. How I sat, moved my hands, and so on were all covered. The strangest thing happened to me while I was changing my tampon though. I realized that if I had to do that, then nobody could say I wasn't a girl, and as I did those exercises, I began to feel relaxed, and a whole lot better about what had happened to me. If I had to be a girl, then why not do my very best? That might just get everyone off my back. Mary picked me up, and once again the next day I was taken to the school. Jennifer pushed me hard enough to let me know it, yet not so hard that it made me angry, and the time seemed to fly by. I learned how to do my own hair and nails, flawless makeup, what to wear and when, and better, when I started my aerobics, I lost enough weight that I actually lost inches at my waist, which was my biggest problem. Since I was no longer fighting myself over what had happened to me, I began to get really good at everything Jenny was teaching me. She would take pictures every Friday, just before I left for home. After 6 weeks, Jenny told me that I had one more class, which was the next day. The minute I arrived at the school, Jenny and I left in her car. She took me to a huge spa where we both got the works. Sauna, rub down, hair, nails, full body waxing, makeup, the whole thing. It took almost 5 hours from start to finish, then she and I went back to the school. Jenny didn't say much until we were inside, then she told me I was going to meet my parents that night. I had not seen them in months, and I began to worry about what Dad was going to say when he saw me. I wasn't sure that what had happened to me was what he thought would happen, but I wasn't angry anymore, and had begun to love the way I looked. I had come to like being a girl, and regardless of what else happened, I didn't think I was going to give it up. Jenny took me in the changing room, told me to undress, then wait. Standing there naked like that didn't bother me. After all, it was just Jenny and I. There was a knock on the door, and expecting Jenny, I opened it wide, only it wasn't Jenny. It was my mother. Oh, I'm sorry, dear. Grabbing the robe, I slipped it on. It's okay, Mom, you found me. Carol? Hi, Mom. What have you? You look. Yeah. Isn't it great? Just then it happened. I began to leak red stuff, which was running down my leg. I grabbed my purse and quickly headed for the restroom, with Mom trailing right behind me. I didn't waste any time changing things, then cleaned up, all while Mom watched. The look on her face was priceless when I squatted down and inserted that tampon, but didn't explain anything to her and went back to the changing room just as Jenny walked in, a bundle of clothes in her hands. I introduced them as Jenny handed me the bundle. Carol just, Mom sputtered. Had a period. How is that possible? And look at him. Her. Yes, she is quite beautiful, isn't she? Why don't you come with me while Carol gets changed? Maybe I can explain a few things for you. They left and I started to sort through the clothes. Starting with the white satin thine panty, I began to get dressed. A corselet, white satin and lace, sheer white nylons that I attached using the garter tabs, then the white sequin sheath dress. It was low cut in front, with a lower back, and hugged me like a coat of paint. I stepped into the white sequin shoes, picked up the purse and transferred my things to it, then walked to Jenny's office, using everything I had learned on how to walk with a sway. Mom was shocked at the way I looked, which meant that Mary had not told her what was going on, but I had turned 16, and no longer wanted to be anything but a girl because I was proud of what I had become, and even more proud of my femininity. I pushed open the office door, and stood there in a true model's pose, making sure that I was ultra-feminine in every gesture and action. Mom stared at me for a moment, then smiled. You've changed. More than we ever imagined. You have become a very beautiful girl, Carol, and you even sound like a girl. I sat down, then Mom went on. Your father and I had no idea this would happen. Would you care to tell me how it happened? I think maybe you should talk to Mary. She arranged everything. I see. We were going to take you to dinner tonight, but I think that's a splendid idea. Carol needs to get out more, and I know she is anxious to see you both. Besides, as you can see, she is already dressed for it. Your father is going to have a cow, Carol, but this is what you said you wanted, Mother, and now that we both have it, I have to be truthful with you. I love being a girl, and I'm not ever going to be a boy ever again. I can see that. Well, shall we go home then? The minute Dad saw me, his eyes bugged out, but when he found out just how complete a girl I was, he almost fainted. When I told him that I had no intention of being a boy again, he flopped in his chair and just stared at me, his eyes drawn to my cleavage. I sat down just as Mom blurted out that I had started my period, and had changed my tampon while she was standing there. That's when he finally did faint. We did go out to dinner that night, but the next day when I went down for breakfast, I wore my short shorts and a tube top without a bra, my hair brushed out and pulled into a ponytail with minimum makeup. The reaction I got from my dad was almost the same. Shock. I helped clean up, then went outside to see if any of my old friends were around. The last thing I heard Dad say before I left was for Mom to call Mary and ask her what the hell happened. I don't know what was said, but as I walked down the street, one of my old running buddies spotted me, and was on me like a bee to honey. Jack introduced himself, then used all of his best lines on me. Since I had heard him use them a bunch of times, it was a bit odd listening to him using them on me, but why not let me take you out tonight? I'll introduce you around? Yeah, I said, sure. Why not? I live right there. Say, wait a minute. That Carol's house. I think you're right, but that's where I live. I'll be ready at 7, if you're still interested, that is. I'll be there, he said more than a little warily. I had made my first catch, and like Jenny told me, it was easy as pie. Men think with their dick, she told me, so all you have to do is smile and talk sweetly. They'll follow you anywhere. I walked around the block, then went back in the house, headed for my room. I saw you talking to Jack out there. Any problems? No, Dad, he asked me out. He's taking me to the show tonight. A date? You're dating? Boys? Of course boys. Who else would I go out with? But, you're a... Dad, I said softly, I'm a girl now. Can you take me over to Mary's so I can get some of my clothes and stuff? Your mother went over there already. Just call her. Tell her I said to bring everything here. Jack and I went to the show, and later, I let him kiss me before I went in the house. My clothes were all hung up, my lingerie in my dresser. Just as I slipped the baby doll over my head, Mom came into my room and shut the door. I pulled on the matching bottoms and started to brush out my hair when Mom finally spoke up. Mary went farther than we had intended. Mom, I don't mind, really. Everything Mary told me made sense, but... Mom, don't worry about it. I like being a girl, except having periods of course, but... I didn't tell your father everything, honey. He still thinks that you can be a boy again. I probably could, Mom. Marion could remove the panty and breast forms, I could get a haircut and my nails trimmed, but what about my voice? I could do all that, but I'm not going to let that happen. Take a good look at me. Do you have any idea how hard I had to work to look this way? Or how many hours I spent learning how to walk, act, and talk like a girl? Mary told me. Months. But this was supposed to be a lesson. Not a... Mom, I don't want to be a boy ever again, and you know that I can't, don't you? I suppose. But what about your father? Someone has to tell him that he has a daughter now. I'll do it, Mom. Just let me think about it. He already knows that I'm having periods, so what doesn't he get? He only knows that you use tampons, he doesn't need to know that you're menstruating. That's personal. Okay. I'll think of something. I'll tell him tomorrow. Good night, honey. Night, Mom. I could have worn the baby doll to breakfast and let Dad see my boobs, but that just didn't feel right. As I got up to get dressed, it came to me. Jennifer had always told me that I should be a lady, not some girl that everyone knew was easy, but Dad wasn't just anyone. In one of her snits, Mary had bought me a pair of pink satin hot pants and made me wear them without any panties. It was embarrassing to see that my twatsie was clearly outlined by the pink satin, but now that I had to find a way to tell Dad just how far I come, I decided to wear them, just like that. I was putting on my foundation when Mom came into my room, and again shut the door. That's when she saw what I was going to wear. I added eyeliner and blusher, then opened the dresser and took out the pants and pulled them on, making sure I yanked them tight. Then a white bra and a white cutoff tee that exposed my tummy. White ankle socks and finally, my gym shoes. Brushing my hair into a ponytail and adding earrings, I stood looking at Mom. That's quite a get-up, Carol. I'll just tell Dad that I'm going jogging, Mom. He'll never know. He'll certainly see that, Mom said, pointing. That's the idea, Mom. I hope he doesn't have a heart attack when he sees you, that's all. Ready? I asked. Mom and I walked into the kitchen together. Dad looked up and saw us, his eyes instantly settling on me. If anything, I looked even more feminine than I did in that white dress, and as I walked over to get a coffee, I knew that Dad's eyes were firmly fixed on me, so I made sure that everything was swaying. He didn't say a thing as Mom and I sat down, then. I thought that I might go jogging with you this morning, Dad. Is that all right? In that? Yeah. What's wrong with it? I could see. Do you have any underwear on? No, why? But you have. It looks like you have a. I do. That's the point, Dad. I'm a girl now. Go change into something that's not so. Go change. Smiling over my shoulder at Mom, I saw her wink as I went towards my room. I could just hear Mom begin to tell Dad something. After I put on some panties, I changed into a pair of shorts, then went back to the kitchen. Is this better, Dad? It's fine. Sit down. Your mother tells me that you... Dad went on to tell me what Mom said, that she told him that I was a girl in every possible way. The look on his face was one of resigned dismay, especially after he began to suggest once again that I might return to being a boy. I dashed his hopes when I said that I couldn't do that, and he should start thinking of me as his daughter. I made it clear that I was happy as a girl, and saw no reason to change that. He mentioned school, of course, which would start in a few weeks, telling me there was no way I could attend as a girl. Mom spoke up and assured him that I could, even if they insisted that I strip. The evidence was overwhelming and he knew it. When we were done with breakfast, Dad and I went jogging, doing his usual 3 miles. My boobs bounced in the bra, my ponytail swayed back and forth, and Dad kept watching me. By the time we got home, I think he was convinced. I showered and changed into a skirt and top, then Mom and I went shopping. I did in fact return to school as a girl. Nancy and Cheryl never figured it out and simply left me alone when I shunned their advances to get together. Dad did not come to accept my changes until he accidentally saw me naked. I had just stepped out of the shower when he walked into my bedroom. After a very brief moment of combined shock, I covered up while he quickly left my room. It was close to Christmas when Mom and I visited our doctor and I began the process to become a real girl. As I look back on it, wearing that dress might have been the best thing that ever happened to me. The judge expunged my record during one of my hearings when I showed up in a short skirt and a blouse with a matching jacket, my mom and dad there to testify that it was unlikely I would repeat my offense. I don't know what I'll do after I have my surgery and don't have periods anymore. I've come to think of them as my badge of femininity. Maybe, with brand new parts, it won't matter.